Hyvä aidon avioliiton ystävä, tervetuloa tähän tilaisuuteemme Perhe, yhteiskunnan kivijalka, joka on samalla yhdistyksemme 10-vuotisjuhla. Lämmin kiitos teille, jotka olette saapuneet paikan päälle tänne juhlaamme, ja samoin teille, jotka katselette tätä myöhemmin televisiosta, tietokoneelta tai puhelimesta, tai samoin myös TV7 sitten kiitos tästä, että välitätte tämän tapahtuman. Sydämellinen kiitos kaikille upeille tilaisuutemme luennoitsijoille täällä ja ulkomaalaisille ystävillemme. On hienoa ja hyvin kunnioitettavaa, että olette voineet saapua tänne meidän tilaisuuteen ja matkustaa tänne. Eli todella iso kiitos teille. Olemme tietoisia, että tavallinen miehen ja naisen muodostama perhe sekä heidän lapsensa ovat koko yhteiskuntamme kivijalka. Jos kivijalka on vahva, koko rakennus sen yläpuolella kestää ehjänä. Ja sama pätee myöskin tietysti perheeseen. Jos se voi hyvin, niin koko yhteiskunta voi hyvin. Tiedämme, että maailmassa on paljon haitallisia aatteita, ihanteita ja toimintaa, joissa vähätellään tätä yhteiskunnan kivijalkaa. Haasteet meille ovat paljon aivan samoja, olimme sitten Suomessa, muualla Euroopassa, USAssa tai missä tahansa. Voimme olla kaikki yhdessä yhteiskunnan kivijalan tukijoita, niin Suomessa kuin muissakin maissa. Meitä ja ystäviämme ulkomailla yhdistää halu säilyttää ja edistää yhteiskuntamme hyviksi tunnettuja asioita ja toisaalta tehdä tunnetuksi ikävät haittailmiöt ja toimia niitä vastaan. Voimme oppia ikävistäkin ilmiöistä ja löytää keinoja kääntää asiat hyvään suuntaan. Kun katsoo ajassa taaksepäin, kamppailu asioidemme puolesta ei ole ollut helppoa ja vaatii usein pitkällistä työtä. Yli 5 vuotta jatkuneen kamppailun jälkeen saimme ison lopullisen voiton korkeimmassa hallinto-oikeudessa vuonna 2024. Eli viime vuonna. Se päätti Edukamessut 2019 jutussa, että arvojen tai mielipiteen perusteella ei saa kohdella huonosti. Lisää tietoa tästä isosta voitosta on meidän yhdistyksemme sivulla. Olen todella iloinen, että yhdistyksemme Suomessa ja niin monet pro-family-yhdistykset ulkomailla ovat olemassa. Niillä on hyvin tärkeä tehtävä tässä ajassa, jota elämme. Aito avioliitto-yhdistys on ollut olemassa nyt 10 vuotta. Mutta miten kaikki alkoi? Minulla ei ole mitään ansiota siinä asiassa, sillä liityin mukaan myöhemmin tähän yhdistyksen toimintaan. Mutta päästetään nyt oikeat miehet sitten tänne puhumaan tästä asiasta, jolloin yhdistyksemme sai alkunsa ja samanniminen kansalaisaloite myöskin esiteltiin.
Meillä on tänään todella upea tilaisuus tulossa. Paljon asiantuntijavieraita. Mutta minulla on semmoinen olo, niin kuin oltaisiin luokkakokouksessa. Mä haluan nähdä, että kuinka moni oli mukana 10 vuotta sitten, kun tehtiin hommia. Aivan mahtava juttu. Keräsimme yli 106 000, melkein 107 000 nimeä kansalaisaloitteeseen säilyttääksemme aidon avioliiton. Ja noissa yhteyksissä perustettiin myöskin Aito avioliitto-yhdistys, jonka säännöissä sanotaan seuraavaa. Miksi yhdistys on perustettu? Yhdistyksen tarkoituksena on edistää ja vahvistaa miehen ja naisen välisen avioliiton asemaa ja merkitystä aitona, erityisenä, luonnollisena ja pysyvänä instituutiona suomalaisessa yhteiskunnassa ja lainsäädännössä. Lisäksi yhdistyksen tarkoituksena on edistää lapsen oikeutta tuntea sekä isänsä että äitinsä ja olla heidän hoidettavanaan koko lapsuusaikansa, mikäli mahdollista. Yhdistyksen tarkoituksena on myös edistää lapsen terveen sukupuoli-identiteetin kehittymistä siten, että pojan kasvua mieheksi ja tytön kasvua naiseksi tuetaan vahvistamalla sukupuolten luontaista erilaisuutta sekä turvaamalla lapselle myös adoptiotilanteessa perhemalli, jossa lapsella on sekä isä että äiti. Tästä ei ole tarvinnut mitään muuttaa. Tämä on edelleen voimassa, tämän edestä työtä on tehty ja edelleen tehtiin ja silloin 10 vuotta aloitimme täydessä Heurekan tiedekeskuksessa sopivan kansalaisen kohun saattelemana. Ja Minä olen Pasi Turunen, toimin silloin yhdistyksen tiedotussihteerinä kampanjan ajan ja edelleenkin sydän on täynnä kiitosta kaikkien niiden ystävien puolesta, jotka todellakin ihan vapaaehtoisina ympäri Suomen kaikenlaisissa tapahtumissa keräsivät näitä nimiä ja mahdollistivat sen, että yhdistys lähti liikkeelle ja on tänäänkin toiminnassa.
I'm Father Paul Sullins. I'm retired from Catholic University of America, where I taught sociology for many years. And when I retired, I started getting involved in different issues that the Catholic Church proposes in the public square. And so the natural family is at the center of Catholic teaching on society. And so I became involved in all of these issues in the public square. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am very pleased to be here with you on the 10th anniversary of the founding of this organization. I'm going to give 2 lectures this afternoon. The first one is called Why Genuine Marriage Cannot Be Gay. Now, I am a person of faith, and I understand that many of you are also people of faith. But this afternoon, I'm not going to appeal to faith, but to reason. I'm going to present to you objective scientific evidence to support the idea that genuine marriage cannot be gay. What is the root premise of marriage? Many will say it is to give legal recognition and regulation to loving sexual relationships, or to promote ordered kinship relations, or even to prevent disease. But the social custom or institution of marriage developed to order sex relations not because of their relationality, but because of their fertility. Sex relations often result in human children. Maybe you've noticed. And like all mammals, human children need the care of their biological parents in order to survive and thrive. The root premise of genuine marriage, therefore, is to ensure as much as possible that every child who is born has the care of its own mother and father until it is fully grown. Marriage, understood this way, is dramatically declining in Western culture. Here are the percent of births to unmarried mothers in Europe and North America in 1964 and 2014. You can see that they were many times higher in 2014 than they were 50 years earlier. Now, on this slide, now the red bars are 2014 and the blue bars are 1964. And in no country did they decrease. Now, Finland, you can see, is right in the middle. The percent of children born without a married mother and father in Finland rose from under 5% in 1964 to over 43% by 2014. Of course, it is even higher today. Now, marriage is not dying all at once, but is being gradually corroded by stripping off one piece at a time. It began with reducing the permanence of marriage by reducing the barriers to exit. First, the social stigma, then the legal obstacles of waiting periods and assigning fault. A century ago, divorce began to become more common and less shameful. Then came the putative separation of sex from childbirth by the technologies of contraception and readily available abortion. This led to the separation of 2 functions formerly reserved to marriage: cohabitation of sexual partners and reproduction by unpartnered persons. This slide presents the gradual stepping down from the natural arrangement of a mother and father with their own biological children to gradual progressions away from that norm. Now, as I've said, the first step had to do with divorce. These 3 steps are family arrangements that occur following a divorce. Now, the last step away from nature, it has come with gay cohabiting and then marriage relationships, which informally and then formally precluded by design and intent the joint care of both biological parents for children. Same-sex relationships are naturally infertile. While same-sex partners may acquire and have some kind of relationship with children, it cannot ever be that of a joint biological mother and father. But this is precisely the natural requirement that marriage has developed in order to protect and elevate. Thus, same-sex partners can never achieve the fundamental good that is the root premise of the institution of marriage. This claim certainly goes against common opinion today. The 2023 Eurobarometer survey showed that 69% of Finns believed that same-sex partners should have the same marriage, adoption, and parental rights as man-woman partners, while only 28% of Finns were opposed to that idea. So if you were to ask the average Finn if society should support same-sex marriage, they would say, of course. For most, not to do so would be a matter of discrimination. But what if we discovered that gay marriage was more harmful for children relative to children with man-woman parents? If what I am suggesting about the importance of natural parents is true, we would expect, all other things equal, child well-being to be highest for children in the care of their joint biological parents, and lowest for the children in care of neither of their biological parents, and in between for children in the care of only one of their biological parents. And in this slide, you can see that that is exactly the case. When you move from this one, which is intact cohabiting parents, so that's closest to the natural arrangement, then you move to the post-divorce arrangements where there's only one natural parent, and then usually a step-parent or remarried parent. And then you move up to same-sex cohabiting and married relationships. You get a progression, a very clear linear progression of worse child outcomes. I should say that these are findings from the National Health Interview Survey of the United States. It is the largest public health survey in the world, based on over 2 million cases, about the most objective source for child well-being in families that you can find in the world. There's only one better source that I know of, and that is the great Finnish register data that you have here in this country. Other scholars have corroborated these findings. These are findings from secular liberal scholars, by no means biased or conservative sources. Now, what causes these differences? Many point to the difficulties observed in same-sex parent families. But today, as I said, I want to suggest a more direct and fundamental reason for reduced child well-being with same-sex parents. A necessary premise of same-sex parenting is that men and women are interchangeable as parents. On this view, if you replace the father with another mother, or the mother with another father, it shouldn't make any difference to the children. The problem with this idea is that scientific research repeatedly finds that men and women bring distinct and irreplaceable gifts and skills to child development. Today, the dominant theory of child development in psychology is known as attachment theory. Developed in the 1960s by Dr. John Bowlby, attachment theory proposes that a secure attachment of the child in infancy to its mother, but not to its father, is crucial for a child's healthy psychological and physical development. Here's a picture of an experiment by one of Dr. Bowlby's disciples. It's a famous experiment. You may have seen videos of it. In the experiment, they put a child in a room with its mother, and then suddenly the mother sneaks out and disappears. The child on the left is expressing what almost every child expresses when that happens. He is not happy. Then they repeat the experiment with the father, and that's the picture of the child on the right. He's maybe a little curious where father went, but he's not very disturbed. Dr. Bowlby proposed that this was true of all higher mammals, not just humans. In all higher mammals, except humans, infants are cared for exclusively by the mother, primarily because of nursing. It's not that only the mother can feed the infant, but that the act and interaction of nursing involves a ritual of behavior, caring, and contact that prompts and supports the infant's optimum development. Prompted by attachment theory, behavioral geneticists in the 1980s compared preterm infants who were periodically taken out of intensive care isolation to be touched, cuddled, held, or massaged like a newborn's mother would do, to a control group who were left alone in the neonatal intensive care unit. The results were dramatic. They found that after 2 weeks, infants who had received just 15 minutes of touch 3 times a day had measurable increases in weight gain, head circumference, physical responsiveness, and other developmental indicators, reducing the average hospital stay by several days. It also matters who did the touching. A meta-analysis of over 50 such studies reported just last year that when held or cuddled by their own mothers, the effect was almost twice as strong as when done by a stranger. Another stream of studies have suggested that early skin-to-skin contact and exposure to maternal odor is critical for a newborn's ability to adapt to a new environment. In these studies, they washed or covered one breast of the mother and left the other with its natural smell, or they used a gauze pad impregnated with the mother's odor compared to a clean pad. And the infant chose the unwashed breast or the odor pad most of the time. When given a choice between their own mother's odor and that of another woman, the infants moved toward the pad with their own mother's odor. For an infant, there is no substitute for the touch and smell of their own mother. We have known since the 1960s that unlike infant formula, breast milk provides a range of antibodies that protect newborn infants before they can develop their own immune reactions. Over the first few weeks of life, the infant's own mother provides different qualities of milk, keyed to the time since birth, that not only wards off infection, but helps the infant establish healthy stomach microbes, regulates the growth of the infant's immune system, and transfers antibodies specific to diseases in the common environment of the infant and the mother. Because of this, the World Health Organization recommends that mothers breastfeed their children for the first 2 years of life. Exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, then gradually transitioning to other foods over the next 18 months. Now, for you who support same-sex parenting, how is this possible for a child who is taken from its mother and put in the care of 2 strange men? Please tell me what can justify such a violation of the health of that child. Does that helpless human being not have the right to the care of its own mother and father, who form the irreplaceable context for its best early life development, both physically and psychologically. In this enlightened country, how many infants become sick, perhaps even die, because they are deprived by force of law of the health benefits of their own mother's milk? That beneficial context is encoded in the wisdom of natural marriage, which encourages the willingness and protects the ability of the mother and father to personally care for their child. Can we see that forming a secure maternal attachment in infancy might be a real problem for children being raised by two men? And forming later paternal attachments might be a problem for children raised by two mothers. This problem may have something to do with the higher rates of internalizing mental disorders among same-sex parented children. Now, scholars widely recognize that if infant attachment is gendered, that is, only or primarily to the mother, it undermines the idea that parents are interchangeable. And thus, as one recent review complains, it challenges the rise of, quote, breadwinning mothers, stay-at-home fathers, and gay and lesbian parent households, end quote. Because of this, a number of studies have looked at both father and mother attachments under various conditions to try to disprove, without success, what this disappointed reviewer has declaimed as, quote, the puzzlingly persistent link between women and primary parenting. The latest attempt that I know of to debunk the gendered nature of infant attachment was a study 3 years ago by an international team of scholars that examined multiple statistical models of maternal and paternal attachment together, but which concluded that, quote, maternal attachment was the sole predictor in most models, end quote. Despite the contrary ideological claims of many elite scholarly associations, strong scientific research has not been able to explain away the irreplaceable benefit for infants of their own mothers, but instead has repeatedly confirmed it. Mothers and fathers also bring distinctly different parenting styles. For example, fathers talk to their children differently than mothers. A recent review explains mothers are more likely to simplify their own language to adapt to the child, while fathers tend to demand more that the child improve their language complexity to adapt to the father's speech. The review concludes that, quote, the studies reviewed indicate that the quality of fathers' interactions consistently predict higher measures of children's language and cognition. A second mother cannot provide the benefit of a father. One reviewed study, for example, found that, quote, fathers' numbers of different root words at 24 months predicted children's expressive language at 36 months, whereas mother's language did not predict. The LBGT press does not talk about it much, but as they grow up, many children with same-sex parents want to find out about their genetic parents. In one story in the publication LGBTQ Nation, the lesbian birth mother of a boy being raised by her and two gay male partners reported that, quote, when her son turned 5, he started asking her which of his two dads was his dad. And by the time he was 8, he wanted to know every detail. This made her uncomfortable and realized in her own words, quote, when you have children, you start out like, I want a baby. This is going to be for me. It's mine. And when you have a baby, pretty quickly you get that, oh no, they're not yours, you are theirs. This dear lesbian mother gets my point exactly. In closing, these are just a few of the inescapable deficiencies faced by children due to having two parents of the same sex. These deficiencies do not result from same-sex parents as persons, but from their relationship. There is nothing in this evidence that suggests that having same-sex desire is associated with lower effectiveness in parenting. The problem, rather, is that no matter how warm, loving, or capable as parents they may be, no lesbian mother can be a father, and no gay male father can be a mother. A child needs and deserves the care of both its biological mother and biological father. And the only family arrangement that assures that is genuine marriage.
So I'm Olivia Morel. I'm coming from France. I'm actually an American and Swiss citizen, but I live in France. I represent the Casablanca Declaration, which is an NGO that is wishing the abolition of surrogacy in the world. So we're going towards an international treaty. My job is to go around the world and to do some lobby for the abolition of surrogacy in certain countries. And I am here today to speak about surrogacy and to enlighten people on what surrogacy really is. It's a true honor to be here in Helsinki, in a country that has the wisdom and the courage to prohibit surrogacy in all its forms. In a world where the surrogacy industry is spreading like wildfire from North America to Asia, from Eastern Europe to Latin America, Finland has chosen to stand firm and protect women and children. And for that, I want to begin by saying a huge thank you to your country. So before I begin my story, I want to make something very clear. I'm an atheist, I'm a feminist, and yet I'm here today to speak with this association that I thank tremendously for the honor of letting me speak my truth, but with whom maybe I do not share the same ideas for the majority. Speaking also to, journalists, activists who may not share all of my convictions about life, faith, or society. But that is the beauty of this cause. The fight against surrogacy has absolutely no political color. It has no religious flag. It's a fight that has something much deeper, and that is human dignity. So whatever our differences may be on other questions, we must stand together. And if you doubt that unity is possible, I'm going to tell you a funny story. For the first time, I met Pope Francis, who I think of today and who deceased. But when I first met him, I told him, I was like, oh, and that's the first thing I said when I came into the room, of course, Holy Father, hello. And then I said, Holy Father, I'm an atheist, I'm a feminist, and yet here we are together, we're going to work together. And I remember him looking at me, smiling, and he laughed, and we both laughed because it sounded almost absurd. And yet it was true. On this issue, the surrogacy issue, we have a feminist atheist and the highest authority of the Catholic Church that were shaking hands because we both knew that the commodification of women's bodies and the buying and selling of children must be stopped. And if that isn't proof that surrogacy is beyond ideology, I don't know what is. So today I come before you not as a representative of a political camp, not as a member of a church, but as a spokesperson of the Casablanca Declaration. So we're a coalition of more than 150 experts around the world. We're jurists, psychologists, feminists, academics, survivors, lawyers, doctors, and we're united by one single conviction. No human being should ever be treated as a product, and surrogacy must be banned at the international level with an international treaty. So for my story, my personal story, I was born in Kentucky, thus the American accent, but the French accent has taken over a little bit, in 1991 in the United States. So through surrogacy, through traditional surrogacy. My commissioning parents who ordered me were Swiss and French. They were very well off. They had a lot of money, and they wanted a child that carried their genes. So my intended mother at that point was 50 years old, and she could not have a child. And so they had the money and, to buy the services of another woman. I have to put just a small disclaimer. I don't blame my parents for doing this. We don't talk today because they're not very happy that I speak against surrogacy. So it's been 2 years since we've talked. But I don't blame them. I feel a lot of love for them. And I don't blame commissioning parents that do this because they're a prey for the surrogacy lobby. So the woman that was going to be my surrogate is not just the woman who carried me for 9 months. She's also my biological mother. I was formed from her egg. I was nourished from her blood and delivered from her body. And yet, the day I was born, I was taken away from her, placed in the arms of 2 strangers, and I was told, these are your parents. So my life began with a rupture, a wound, tearing apart that has shaped every part of who I am. And growing up, I felt like something was missing. I couldn't really explain what. But around 6 years old, I started looking at my mother, my intended mother, and I saw the differences between she and I. She was dark-skinned. She had brown eyes. She was small. I'm tall. I'm more Eastern looking like, blue eyes. And so I asked her one day, I was like, oh, well, Mom, how old are you? And she said, don't ever ask me that question. And so already when I was young, I started asking questions, and I knew that she couldn't be my mother. I just knew it inside myself. And I suffered from this unshakable fear of abandonment throughout my childhood. I developed huge panic attacks, deep anxiety that the people that I love would disappear. And finally, I got to meet the woman who birthed me, my surrogate mother. So one day I received a message on Facebook Messenger from her, actually, my mother, the woman I'd been searching for my entire life without knowing it. And in that moment, my world collapsed, but at the same time, it rebuilt itself. So we began to exchange messages. She told me about her life. She told me about her decision to become a surrogate. She told me how she felt when I was taken away from her. And I told her how I had grown up, the pain that I carried, the emptiness that haunted me. Those conversations were some of the most healing and the most devastating of my life. Because in her words, I found both love, the love that I had been deprived of, and the confirmation of the loss that I suffered. She also told me something that I'll never forget. When I was taken away after birth, they placed me in a little basket to be cleaned, and in that moment, she remembered distinctively my little tiny head turning towards her and looking straight at her. And I didn't know her name at that point. Of course, I didn't know her story, but I knew her. She was my mother. Because every newborn knows exactly who to look for when they come out into this austere world. It was my first gesture in life, searching for her, my mother. It was also the first moment I was denied what every child should have, the embrace of the woman who carried and birthed me. So people often ask me, but if you have found your mother now, doesn't it erase the pain? And I respond to this, no. It is wonderful to know her. It was incredible to be in contact with her, to see her face, to see my ancestors. But nothing can give me back the 30 years I spent without her. Nothing can repair the moment of my birth when I cried for her and she wasn't allowed to hold me. And this is the reality of surrogacy. Behind every glossy photo of a smiling couple holding a baby, there's a hidden story of a separation, of a rupture, of a wound that may never completely heal.
Yli puolet avioliitoista päättyy eroon. Suuri osa lapsista elää uusperheessä, jossa heillä ei ole läheistä yhteyttä biologiseen isään tai äitiin. Kohdunvuokrauksesta on tulossa maailmalla miljardibisnes ja homo- sekä lesbopariskunnat adoptoivat itselleen lapsia. Samaan aikaan abortteja tehdään Suomessa melkein 10 000 vuodessa, koska seksuaalimoraali on irrotettu lapsia suojelevasta avioliitosta. Perhe yhteiskunnan kivijalkana on vaarassa ja tämä kehitys uhkaa länsimaita väestökadon muodossa. Yhtä suomalaista naista kohden syntyy 1,26 lasta, mikä tarkoittaa, että väkiluku supistuu vauhdilla. Suomen poliitikoilla ei ole muuta ratkaisua kuin ulkomaalaisten vastaanotto ja avioliiton pyhyyden vesittäminen. Sen vuoksi haluamme TV7 tehdä ohjelmia sellaisista yhteiskunnallisista aiheista, jotka uhkaavat kristinuskon asemaa ja koko Suomen kohtaloa. Jos sinä haluat tukea TV7 yhteiskunnallisia ohjelmia, niin voit antaa tukesi ruudussa näkyvillä lahjoitustiedoilla. Lämmin kiitos tuestasi.
My name is Jan Gregor and I am from the Czech Republic, from capital Prague, and I am a member of Alliance for Family in Czech, Aliance pro rodinu. So we are doing advocacy for family rights and children rights. True marriage is a good news for us, for our children, for whole society. It's a better story, a story of man and woman, two people who complete each other, cultivating what is the most valuable and beautiful in this world, the love of man and woman who together can take part in the miracle of creating another human being. The revision of marriage is not a good story. When the definition is diluted, fatherhood, motherhood, even gender lose their meaning. Something is missing. Even worse, someone is missing. A father or a mother for a child. The truth is simple. The rights of children must come before the desires of adults. Yes, there are marriages without children, but there are no children without a mother and father. Redefining a marriage leads directly to redefining a parenthood. And if gender and parenthood don't matter in marriage, where will they matter? If motherhood is interchangeable, why not legalize surrogacy everywhere? Over the past 9 years, we have fought for the rights of children and families. Above all, we have fought for a constitutional definition of marriage as a union between man and woman. Why? Because it guarantees fundamental rights to children. We fought in Parliament, we fought before the Constitutional Court, even though amicus curiae briefs. Strategic litigation is a powerful tool, especially on unpopular issues where public opinion is on our side. We have succeeded. We defended marriage in the courts and in Parliament too, but we have not won every battle. Unfortunately, we could not stop the expansion of the right to have a children. Starting this year, children can gradually be adopted by 2 men or 2 women, not from orphanage, but through IVF. We also fought against transgender ideology, and at first we won. But last year we lost. The Constitutional Court loosened the conditions for gender reassignment in the Czech Republic. This followed the activist jurisprudence of the European Court for the Human Rights, created by Garso-Nikor decision. It was a battle between David and Goliath. For 6 years, we fought for the definition of marriage in the Constitution. On one side, our opponents have everything. They have open door to liberal media. They are supported by foreign embassies in violation of Article 41 of Vienna Convention, not to intervene in internal affairs of the state. Opponents of marriage are generously funded by multinational corporations, Google, Vodafone, etc. And also by European Economic Cooperation Funds and also by the European Commission, how was mentioned by Rafal Dorosiński from Poland. This is not just money. This is a funding interference in the family policies of member states. Family policy is the exclusive competence of member states. This is contrary to primary EU law, and it should be enforced. I would like to share some lessons from our Czech experience. Lesson first, build community. Alone, you are ignored. Together, you are powerful. We gathered over 100,000 signatures in a country of 10 million people. That unity gave us strength. Politicians could not ignore it. Second lesson, don't fear money. Resources give freedom. You depend only on the trust of your supporters, and you must keep them informed. Weekly updates create loyalty. Third, don't fight against, fight for. When you only oppose, you react. When you propose, you lead. Our campaign was not against same-sex marriage. It was for constitutional marriage. Saying yes to truth, to goodness, to marriage moves hearts. Fourth lesson, seek friends and allies on all sides. Have one clear topic. It's easier to form alliance around a single goal. Do not rely on only one side or one political party. Fifth lesson, science and rigorous evidence are on our side. They support the natural family, but mainstream channels often ignore it. Scientists are scared to speak openly. Cancel culture leads academia. Sixth lesson, opponents are using terrible strategies. When you defend a marriage as a union of man and woman, opponents are able to say that you are working for the Putin regime. Lies are everywhere. In the Czech Republic, for example, it is claimed that Russia is the last country to adopt constitutional definition of marriage. But actually, Singapore was last. Yet no one considers living in Singapore as a problem, unlike living in Russia. We must not be intimidated. Be brave. Never give up. Be creative. We are not here to be praised by people. Defending truth with capital T comes at cost. But this is why we are here. We are to be salt that does not lose its flavor. Let us help each other in our common endeavor. Let us support one another. May the Lord bless us in this.
My name is Varro Vooglaid. I come from Estonia, Tallinn, and I have been working to defend the truth about marriage and family for the past close to 15 years in Estonia. Already back in 2011, we started our own foundation to defend marriage and family and also the sacredness of human life. But since 2023, I'm a member of parliament. I was assigned to say a few words about the battle for true marriage and biological sex in Estonia. Well, I don't know how much I can say in just those few words, a few minutes. But as you probably know, Estonia became the first or the second country in Eastern Europe which also legalized the so-called homosexual marriage or same-sex marriage, which of course has nothing to do with marriage. The other one being Slovenia, but it is not really in Eastern Europe, it's rather in the Central Europe. But unfortunately, after Finland made the decision in 2017, Estonia made the decision in 2023. It is ironic from my point of view that I agreed to run to the parliament in order to contribute to avoiding this outcome. But right after I became a member of the parliament, same-sex marriage, so-called, was legalized in Estonia, the very thing I had been fighting against for 10 years as a civil society activist. The interesting thing, though, is that in 2020 and 2021, we organized a big campaign to have marriage protected as a union between one man and one woman in the Constitution. And we worked closely in cooperation with the National Conservative Party, which became a member of the government in 2019. And it was part of the governmental agreement, the coalition agreement, that there would be a referendum held in Estonia to give marriage constitutional protection. But then a very curious thing happened. Just one day before, the parliament was scheduled to make the decision that there would really be a referendum. The defense police and the prosecutor's office brought a big criminal prosecution case against one of the government parties. The government fell and the referendum was cancelled. So they could have brought the case 2 days later and the decision would have been made by the parliament that there would be a referendum, and all the polls showed that the referendum would have granted constitutional protection for marriage. But they decided to do it just 1 day before the decision was made in the parliament. So now it will remain for you to ponder whether it was a coincidence or not. I don't believe it was. There were other reasons also, but I think it was a scheduled operation, among other things, to do away with the threat of having marriage protected in the Constitution. And as we proposed, of course, many years ago, after this move was made that the so-called same-sex marriage was legalized in Estonia, all the other bad things have ensued. Of course, there has been a massive increase in propaganda in the educational system. They are still increasing it. They are trying to integrate this LGBTQX, whatever you call it, into all topics taught in the schools and also kindergartens. Also, they are trying to move forward with the criminalization of hate speech. Fortunately, thus far, we have managed to block it in the parliament, but I don't know for how much longer we can do it. Anyway, that's the other thing they are trying to do. So, what else can I tell you? Well, all in all, it's a very sad situation because they are implementing an openly family hostile policy. Although never before have so few children been born in Estonia. There is a huge drop in the number of births, especially after the COVID years. Our birth rate has dropped to 1.18, which is almost twice less than necessary to reproduce the population level. And instead of organizing campaigns to promote family values, marital fidelity, having many children, no, nothing like this. They are only promoting all those LGBTQ, X, Y, Z values. And they are financing every single abortion in Estonia, which is absolutely ridiculous, considering the fact that our nation is basically dying. And it is the constitutional duty of the state to guarantee the survival of the Estonian nation.
I'm Andrea Williams. I'm Chief Executive of Christian Concern and the Christian Legal Centre in the United Kingdom. And I am very pleased to be here to promote the prospering of family within society. So it's very wonderful today to be celebrating 10 years of this important organisation. I was qualified as a barrister in 1988. I'm the founder of Christian Concern and the Christian Legal Center. If you had ever said to me in the 1980s when I was studying law that marriage would be redefined to be between two men and two women, I'd have said impossible. If you had ever said to me that teachers would be removed from their classrooms for refusing to affirm a child in the opposite sex, age 8, I'd have said impossible. If you'd ever said to me that we would rewrite biological certificates in the United Kingdom, birth certificates, and say that a man is a woman and a woman is a man on an English document, I'd have said, this is impossible. It's another planet. If you'd ever said to me in the 1980s when I was studying that I would spend my life doing this, well, I wouldn't have said impossible, but I'd have been very surprised. I wanted to be a criminal barrister, perhaps a criminal judge. But all of these things have come true. Today, I run an organization with 8 full-time lawyers. We have 1,000 Christian interest cases on these issues every year come through our doors. We are campaigning in Parliament with the parliamentary team, again, another team of 5 every single day. At the moment, resisting assisted suicide. In June, we liberalised abortion up to birth. We decriminalised abortion in England, in the United Kingdom, up to birth. How is that civilised? Do people still look on the United Kingdom as civilised? We've passed in our Parliament the right to assist in a suicide in June, that very same week as we decriminalised abortion up to birth. Is that civilised? Is that caring for the most vulnerable in our society? No, it's deeply uncivilised. And yet nations still look to us as a civilised nation of law and order in the world. Well, I'm bringing you the future, and I'm bringing you the warning. Many of your nations have laws that are similar, but they are not outworked in the way that they have been outworked in the United Kingdom with the catastrophe that is there. And it surprises me continually that people haven't seen this more clearly and that something greater hasn't been done to push back. But as Varro said, I'm full of hope because I believe that this has ended up in a society that is so chaotic, 2, 3, 4 generations on, that now the children of the children of the children are crying out for truth. A little bit like Olivia knew that something was wrong, all from the moment she was born. When we don't conform well in law, when we don't conform to God's laws, I'm an unashamed lover of the Lord Jesus Christ. My organisation is called Christian Concern. But when we don't have laws that conform to order, we become very deeply unhappy as a society. And in the end, we implode, which is what is happening in the United Kingdom.
My name is Moritz Scholtisig, and I'm from Germany, and I'm the communications officer of the pro-family NGO Demo für Alle in Germany. Today, I would like to introduce you to the work of Germany's leading pro-family NGO Demo für Alle. Some of you may have already heard of us, others may not have, so let me take a step back and tell you the story of this movement, also to move a little bit the topics now from a lot of issues we have heard and problems we have heard to maybe some ideas on how to act. Our organization was founded 11 years ago, so 1 year older than our Finnish counterpart. In 2014, parents in Baden-Württemberg, that's a region in southwestern Germany, protested against the so-called education plan that was supposed to be established in 2015. This plan by the regional government stipulated that children as young as 6 years old should learn about, I quote from the plan, so-called acceptance of sexual diversity at school, not just in sex education, but in general all over the school subjects. So many parents in that region were actually shocked. Why should young children be confronted at school with topics that are not age appropriate and that violate the parents' educational principles. And this outrage of several parents and families gave rise to a movement out of which grew the organization Demo für alle. Inspired by our French friends at La Manif pour tous, the Demo für alle movement was born in Germany. Demo für alle is a literal translation for La Manif pour tous, so you could say like demonstration, manifestation for all. Within a few weeks of 2014, thousands of people took to the streets in Stuttgart, the capital of Baden-Württemberg. You can see one picture of many demonstrations that took place not just in 2014, but also in the years to come in Stuttgart. The fact that so many parents took to the streets to defend their rights was a completely new development in Germany, as we are not quite as keen on demonstrations as the French are, especially the conservatives weren't back then. They are now, actually, but back then it was completely new. It was like a shocking moment. And thus this was a big signal that politicians could not ignore. It worked, actually. The so-called education plan was first postponed and then at least softened on many issues. That was our beginning. That was the beginning of Demo für alle. So what are the challenges we face today in Germany? Let me highlight three key issues that we focus on. First, the sexualization of children. Children are exposed to a flood of sexualized content via social media, via the internet in general, often as early as elementary school age. Instead of counteracting this, politicians are often promoting precisely this development with the so-called comprehensive sex education, the CSE, you may be familiar with. Secondly, the transgender hype or transgender trend. In recent years, we just heard about it, the number of young people, especially girls who want to change their sex, has multiplied. Clinics are reporting skyrocketing numbers of transition among minors, including puberty blockers, hormones and surgeries with massive side effects, often even irreversible. The law on self-determination, which we have in Germany with regard to gender entry, was passed last year, has exacerbated this development. In Germany now, from the age of 14, young people can change their gender entry, the legal gender entry, by self-declaration without any expert opinion or anything, without counseling, and even against the will of their parents. This is an attack on the family, attack on reality itself. And thirdly, this is a little bit more specific in Germany, a family law reform. In Germany, many politicians and parties are planning a revolution in family law. They want to introduce legal institutions, so-called co-motherhood or social parenthood, and also multi-parenthood. According to the plans of many parties in Germany, children could legally have several mothers or up to 4 legal guardians. That's called multi-parenthood. So it would not longer be biological descent, but social affiliation that would determine who is the father and or the mother of a child.
Haluamme TV7:llä tehdä ohjelmia sellaisista yhteiskunnallisista aiheista, uhkaavat uhkaavat kristinuskon asemaa ja koko Suomen kohtaloa. Jos sinä haluat tukea TV7 yhteiskunnallisia ohjelmia, niin voit antaa tukesi ruudussa näkyvillä lahjoitustiedoilla. Lämmin kiitos tuestasi.